Hey everyone, Brian here again. Today's topic is near and dear. It's something I struggle with all the time, fear of a blank canvas or blank canvas paralysis. You can call it what you want, but it's all the same thing. It's horrifying. It never fucking goes away. Whether you're a professional artist and you make art for a living, or if you know just draw occasionally, it always creeps up. I think some people know how to manage it a little bit better. I'm not one of those people yet. um, I'm an overthinker to a fault. It's definitely paralyzing and crippling. Um, I always complain about how hard it is to buy a toothbrush at the grocery store because there are too many options. So I overanalyze everything, and therefore I overthink everything. And when it comes to art, that's not a good quality to have, or maybe it is, but I haven't figured out how to embrace it quite yet. So I think over the years, looking back on where I struggled the most and maybe projects that were successful, I've kind of like figured out a couple of things that or tricks that I use to kind of get past that. I mean, there's so many there's so many aspects to this issue. There's fear, like fear of failure. There's so many mindsets to overcome, negative mindsets. There's preciousness of the materials. Like I don't want to draw on this really expensive piece of watercolor paper because I paid $5 for it and I don't want to ruin it. Stupid crap like that. Or I don't want to draw in this sketchbook because if I fuck up a page, I have to rip it out, and you can't really rip pages out of this. Trust me, man. Some of the stuff sounds ridiculously goofy, but it's all stuff that goes on, even if you're aware of it or not. Even if it's a slight feeling, it really ends up holding you back, and it's challenging. So some of the things, the first challenge that I put together in this group was on post-it notes, and that probably wasn't a coincidence because this is like the most unintimidating thing that you could possibly draw on, and if you fuck it up, who cares? You peel it off and you just toss it. You know, that I think that's one aspect of it. I think drawing on, if you feel like your materials are precious and that you know they're gonna run out or you can't afford to make a mistake, then you gotta figure something else out. I mean, I draw on tracing paper because it's cheap, newsprint. If you can make, I guess, sketchbooks that are just out of cut pieces of paper, and the shittier the sketchbook looks, I think the easier it is to dive in and actually do something and not have that fear. Other things I do, we have so many like half drawn, or maybe this is a fully drawn image, but like our kids leave stuff like this all around, and so I pick this stuff up and just start kind of doodling, and that's where I can come up with something on top of their drawing. And again, if I mess up, not a big deal. That actually brings up another pretty important point, which is, when you don't see, hey Jade, when there's nothing on the page, it's horrifying. An easy hack for that is, let me just split the screen here. I know a lot of artists that do this. If they have a blank sheet of paper, before they get started, they just kind of scuff it up with some random marks to just just to have something to respond to. You know, there's so many different ways. In figure drawing class, before I start, I take like a chamois cloth, and you can't really, I guess you can't really see it here, but I'll just wipe the page so that there's something there, that, yeah, just something, anything there, anything other than white, anything that's like, again, mark making, collage. I think artists that use collage, this is a great, you know, that's a great solution to the problem, because they're already starting with something. They've got something to respond to. A friend of mine makes what she calls environments, and you know, it's collage, and it's like a random brush strokes and color fields, and then that's what she brings to figure drawing class, and she draws on top of those. And the best part is if she screws it up, she paints over it and starts all over again on the same sheet of paper. So, you know, I think that's a really awesome solution. You know, this chart is kind of funny, but it's a very calculated chart here. The point is, if your materials cost money, the more money that they cost, the greater the fear of screwing up. The size, I think, if you have a giant canvas or a giant sheet of paper, or you know, whatever it is, for me, the larger it is, the more likely I am to be fearful of failure. Permanence, obviously, if you're drawing in ink or anything like that you can't undo, there's another level of fear. You know, some artists, I think, deliberately draw in ink to face this fear, to face the challenge. I think that's another approach to this, is rather than trying to come up with ways to undo, you just kind of go for it. And you know, again, if you're using collage, you can collage over a mistake, or you can embrace a mistake. Just like keep going, don't stop, don't worry about it. Your piece is not you know, I think another problem is expectations. I think that kind of leads into this one. Like, the more that something is going to mean to you, if you're working on a piece that's really personal, or for somebody else, or a commission, or you know, whatever it is, if you've already projected all this meaning onto it, and that like it has to be amazing, like this thing, this has to be one of the greatest pieces of artwork ever, then you're totally gonna fail, or I mean, at least I will. So I can't do that, and I just, that is dangerous territory. I'm trying to think of some other, you know, other ridiculous things. You know, a spiral bound sketchbook, to me, that reduces the fear, because if I mess up, I can tear it out. This kind of goes back to, like the preciousness issue. The other thing is, like, you can't plan a drawing or an image or a piece of art before you start making it. Like, that is horrible. It's such a false thought, and I don't know where that comes from, but I mean, I try to do that, and it's the wrong approach. You know, like, the best art comes out of, obviously, accidents, or things that come up while you're in the middle of creating it. And I mean, that's, looking back, I can recognize that. It's hard to keep that in mind ahead of time. That's the problem, is like, you really have to remind yourself of all these things the second you start feeling that fear creeping in. Other ways, I'm just looking at my notes. Again, I could talk about this for hours, and I'm probably going to have, you know, more than one video about this. Oh, other things, like there's too many options. Like, what should I draw, or what should I use to draw it with? Like, come up with constraints. Just say I'm going to draw whatever is to the right of me in this room, or I'm only going to use pencil. I'm not going to worry about color. Color for me sometimes messes me up. I trip up a lot if I'm trying to incorporate color and I'm not in the right, space. Um, I think another thing that is really good are drawing prompts. Obviously, if you can't, like, if you really are stuck and you just can't, like, decide on anything, drawing prompts or challenges obviously work really well. But another thing that has worked for me in the past is collaboration with somebody else, because that kind of addresses everything all at the same time. Like, you're giving up control, which means you can't overthink, which means you can't plan. There's a lot of chance involved. One of the best examples of that is Exquisite Corpse. That's an old surrealist drawing exercise, and you essentially fold a paper in three, kind of like that, and that's a horrible. Who folds a piece of paper like that? Anyways, somebody starts the drawing, and then the next person kind of picks up and continues the drawing without looking at what the previous drawing is. They can just kind of see the some of the lines from what the person before did. But I did this collaboration with a friend of mine named Jimmy, and we worked on it off and on for 8 years, I guess. And the beauty, I finally I kind of realized that while we were doing it is, it was so easy for us to do. It was so easy for me to do, especially because I had something to respond to. I didn't have to think about, what am I going to draw? Like, I saw some of his lines, and I had a collection of assets, drawings, images. I had my drawing tablet, and I just kind of like started throwing stuff down and figuring it out, making decisions in the moment, not trying to make decisions ahead of time. So, that worked out really well. And I think there's probably so many other ways to collaborate with other people to address this whole issue of staring at a blank canvas. So I think I probably covered everything. I've probably said more times than I wanted, but yeah, I think the fear of a blank canvas also applies to everything. It applies to life. It applies to any sort of challenge that you face where you don't know what to expect. So I think this is a good metaphor for that, and hopefully some of these ideas are useful. All right, until next time, I'm going to be staring at hopefully not blank pieces of paper or canvases. All right, take care.